Is everyone going to drink? Is anyone without a drink? Hands up. No, everyone has one.
So just to talk you through this drink, guys. So it's just a riff on a Gibson. It's part of our bottled cocktail range that we'll be releasing with Whearty. So the idea with this drink is it's all revolving around the onion family. So it's using shallots and fresh herbs infused into a house-made vermouth, and then a caramelised leaf gin, and with a little bit of honey vinegar in there with the pickled onion.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you to everyone for coming along. I know it's first week of December and everyone's getting pretty busy, so I'm really excited to be able to sell out tonight's event, which is awesome, and I'm seeing a lot of new faces. For those who don't know me, I'm Michael, one of the co-founders of Worksmith. Worksmith is a collaborative space for the food, beverage and hospitality community. Been around since February this year. It's been an awesome year within these walls, and we're really excited to say that we're actually launching another space in the CBD in March next year, which is really cool. If anyone is interested in having a look around Worksmith during the night, there's Rachel here, who's our community manager, does 99.9% of the work here, or myself, and I'll try and do it for you. I'm going to hand it over to these guys to actually talk about themselves for a little while. We have Luke Whearty from Operation Dagger in Singapore, as well as his new venture Whearty here in Melbourne. Then we have Matt Whiley from Scout in London.
Thanks heaps for coming, guys. It's pretty overwhelming to have so many of you come and listen to us talk about what we do and the concept or the idea of opening bars, which I think can be like quite a daunting idea and experience for a lot of people. Hopefully, I guess what we're trying to sort of show today is it doesn't have to be such a daunting experience if you're well prepared and you use the network around you and so on. So I think between us, we've had a little bit of experience in the topic. Not just in Australia, but abroad, in particular with Matt being based in London up until recently. And I guess we're just going to sort of keep it pretty informal and talk about our experiences. I guess one thing that I want to sort of bring up straight away is we're not gonna sit here and say our way or the highway. You know, there's so many ways to skin a cat, but this is what's worked for us. And you know, there's a few things I think that we both do. That we both do very similar things in terms of preparation to open a bar. A lot of it comes down to some really basic things sometimes that people just skip over or don't take the time to make themselves look well. So what I wanted to do is, not a lot of you maybe sort of get to know or know of some of Matt's older venues in London, just to give you sort of a bit of a breakdown of the different venues he's opened over the years. He's about 63 this year, so he's got a wealth of experience. Just joking, he's about 61. But yeah, he's been doing this for a long time, even a lot longer than me as well. So I think, you know, there's a really strong wealth of knowledge with Matt and the stuff he's been doing in the past. So Matt's going to sort of run through some of the venues he's opened up in London with you here, starting with Pearl over 8 years ago now.
Yeah, for me, like, I want to showcase all the bars that I've opened, and I think once I talk about them, you'll see that every single one of them is different. Every single venue that's ever opened has been opened under different financial circumstances, in a different location, and with different partners, and with a lot different experience. The first bar, Pearl, was kind of the first bar me and my partners at the time opened. We set up a company called Fluid Movement in the October before this, and we set out to open a consultancy business that did events. We started our business in September, and up until February we got no work, not one job whatsoever, and all of a sudden a job came up in Azerbaijan, of all places, to do a big consultancy. We went back to them and said, look, we all have jobs, but we can do this. We still have full-time jobs, all of us. We sent a quote in for £20,000 to these really rich guys in Azerbaijan, and they came back and said, no, we want you for a month, and here's 40 grand. So we were like, wow, 40 grand, we can open a bar with this. It was at the time of the recession in London, so there were venues like everywhere that were free to get. You just needed some credentials. And we went to Luck at Pearl. It was in Marylebone, in a really affluent area, and we got it for £17,000 a year in rent, which is like practically giving the place away, and we didn't pay anything for it. So we got our 40 grand from these rich guys in Azerbaijan, and we were like, this is not enough money. How are we going to do this? So we called our bank manager. We just put this 40 grand in the bank and said, we need some more money. And he said, good luck. 2 weeks later, he came back to us and said, there's a new government scheme where the government will give you money for a new business with really good terms, but you will have to personally guarantee it, all four of you. So we went from just being bartenders in venues to starting this business to all of a sudden we've got a 20-year lease with personal guarantees of, and we've got a 10-year loan with personal guarantees of. And we, at the time, we didn't really think about it. We were like, yeah, we don't own houses, fuck it, let's do it. And actually, thinking back to it, it's actually really scary because we could have lost everything, all of us, but thankfully Pearl was successful. But we went in, we started the building work, we did it all ourselves, barring some electrical work. But we went in under the premise that we were just going to buy some furniture, build a bar, and open with like not much money. We got in there, we got the keys, the electrician came down and said, you need a whole rewire. It's going to cost £10,000, and that was our contingency budget. So we're doing the numbers, and we put the figures in, we go, right, we need £2 grand to even finish the build, and we don't have any money to buy booze. Fortunately, my partners at the time worked for Diageo, so they had like these really big storage units just full of booze. So we took a little bit to one side, and we had an opening rail. We got a deal from Diageo at the time, and actually, luckily, we signed the deal really quickly, and we got like 10 grand of poor India money came through as an upfront investment, and this gave us our contingency budget that the electrician blew out of the water. We called up some suppliers, and we went with suppliers who gave us credit terms. They weren't the best suppliers, they didn't have the best amount of products, but they gave us credit terms. So we actually still work with these people. They were a really small company, they're based down in the south of the UK, but they looked after us. And I think we used one furniture company who built some banquettes. My dad did the plumbing. One of my partner's dads still is their accountant in their company, and I built the back bar, and that was it really. And we opened Pearl. The first guest came on a Wednesday night. We were still taking glassware out of boxes. Incredibly inexperienced guys opening a bar. We had no idea what we were getting ourselves into. But we opened, no PR. 1 month later, the bar was empty. No one came. And we were like stressing out. We were going to lose everything. And at the time out in London held a big sway with how people drank. There was probably only 5 great bars in London in 2010, other than hotel bars. And the guy came down, he sat on his own, there was no one else in the bar on a Saturday night. And we gave him this drink of dry ice, it was going everywhere, and he loved it. And he gave us a 5-star review. And that week, we were rammed every single night. And Pearl is still there to this day. It still operates. I think the rent is, I'm speaking to the guys that own it now, I think the rent's gone up to £65,000. So it's gone up incredibly amounts. And I think we all took around £25,000 a year salary out of Pearl alone, and it still made a profit of 140k a year. It was an amazing venue. It's still really good. I think it's on the market for $750,000 for sale. And then the guys I think they're going to move abroad and go back to South Africa. So yeah, Pearl was the one venue that could have gone wrong. It could have gone horribly wrong, and we didn't actually even know what we were getting ourselves into. But it set us on the right path, and without it, we wouldn't. All 4 of us wouldn't have been in the place we are today.
So I think, as Matt talks about his venues starting from the first one to the current one he has, I think you'll probably sort of notice that there's a lot of things that he learned on the way. I think a good point to make is there's always some sort of risk. If you think you're going to open a business and there's going to be 0 risk, you're dreaming. There is always some sort of risk. it can be lucky, like in this sense, it can just take one review to turn it all around, but you don't have to rely on that luck, I think, if you are well prepared. Obviously, Matt and I joke about it all the time. A lot of young guys, and we're always open to sharing ideas, even if it's down to recipes or whatever it is, opening a venue. I mean, we're here today, and we're an open book. But we often joke about the fact that when we were sort of, starting out, we didn't have anyone that we could talk to. And a lot of young guys, we sometimes get frustrated, and they're like, "Oh, we're just handing it over to them." We had to learn the hard way. But I think that's a good thing, a good point to make also, is use the network around you, use people's experience, so you don't have to learn the hard way, because it's
Stressful.
yeah, very stressful. I think a good point to make too, Matt's probably going to be talking in pounds.
Yeah, pounds,
a lot of the time, and so just be aware of that, yeah.
Because we're idiots and we decided to leave the EU, the pound's really weak now, so it doesn't have the same value, but back then it was quite a lot of money compared to dollars.
So Worship Street
Yeah, so
this is actually a bar that years ago I read about when they would, I think some of the world's first, in a lot of different techniques in terms of like innovative, progressive drinks. I mean, I all the way over in Australia heard about what these guys were doing. Really innovative bar, and it was just, Matt just told me, it just got sold.
yeah, it's just been sold to the London Cocktail Club, so they've literally gutted the whole thing, and it's been pretty much in this guise as a Victorian wine bar for about 45 years, and it's been completely gutted. AJ Goodman's going to turn it into a party bar, so it's sad but also quite sweet that someone's taking it on and going to spend a lot of money on it. So this was, Pearl, like I said, was quite a success overnight after a month, and we built up quite a stockpile of money. We were looking after ourselves, but we were clever with how we were using our money, and we saved up a little bit of money. Not very much, but a little bit. And then we went back to the bank manager again and said, "Thanks for looking after us, we want to do this again." And he said, "Actually, you've been really successful in your first year, we can give you 40 grand this time. We can give you a little bit more money. The terms are going to shorten a little bit because you can afford to pay it off quicker. Same vibe, personal guarantees again. And because Pearl was also, we did really well, the volumes were really good for a small bar, we went back to Diageo and said, it's been 1 year on now, we want a better deal. But we've got Bacardi who also want to give us a lot of money. So how can we look to get a deal?" And we actually struck a deal with both of them. We're a small company in our infancy, and having cash in the bank is imperative. So we actually sold all of our menu off for both sites, and we raised 60,000 pounds upfront cash. And these two pieces of money opened the whiskey shop for us. The place that we took our first site from, the Davies Wine Bar, that used to operate. These guys still have 50 venues around London. They're really old-fashioned Victorian wine bars that people just like to go and drink wine in these basements. But they came to us and said, we've got 4 sites we want to get rid of. Would you be interested in taking them? So we went and looked around all of them. We fell in love with this site. It's in Shoreditch. There's still these old ladies were pouring wine. It's been around for 40 years. And we just yes, let's do it. Let's open a Victorian drinking den, but with uber modern techniques. Let's look back to the history of Victorian drinking. And at the time we employed a guy you might know him. It's Ryan Chetty-Wharton. You probably heard of him. Ryan came to work for us as our bar manager from the whiskey shop. He did an amazing job at writing our menus. And we pretty much had nothing to do with the menu for Whiskey Shop. Ryan wrote it all, we trained the staff. We supported him from a back office element, and we still looked after Pearl. Here we employed staff. We didn't do it ourselves. We employed 2 contractors. My dad still did the plumbing. We had this bright idea, we wanted a gold ceiling like a old Victorian thing, and it cost us a fortune, but that was probably a mistake that we went a little bit too far. We had this little bit of extra money, and we thought, let's throw it around. And we put this stupid ceiling in. But the result when it went up was amazing. And we opened again, no one came, time out, boom. overnight we were doing £30,000 a week from £5,000 a week, and it was insane. It became a high volume bar. There was just people everywhere, and it was testament to the guys that worked for us, because they had these tiny little 800ml stations, and I don't know how they bartended on these stations, but they were pumping out drinks, and they were amazing. And it was at the time we'd never heard of Tales of a Cocktail. We didn't even know what it even existed in America. And then all of a sudden we got nominated for some awards around the world, and the whistling shop went crazy. It was super mental, and yeah, like I say, it's been around 2011 we opened. It's just closed. The guys sold it to the London Cocktail Club, and I think it's probably, I left this company in 2013, but it's probably made them a lot of money. It's a really nice bar, and yeah, it's always good memories for me.
I think Worship Street's a great example of, one point that I want to make sort of today is even like myself, someone like Ryan, I think a lot of people these days that want to open their own bar, they want to run before they walk. In the case of Ryan, he was doing amazing stuff even back then. This is way back before, last year he won the world's best bar, and he's had immense success. And I think a true credit to him, not only to, surrounding himself around people like Matt that he can learn off, but sort of, taking all those steps necessarily, that are necessary before, like I say,
Ryan's only worked in amazing bars. He started in Bramble, which is one of the best bars in the world, and then he went to work for Tony to work in the lab at Colbert Road, and then he came to work for us, and his progression is insane. He's probably one of the brightest people I've ever met.
He said that about me.
Yeah, but that was lying.
So yeah, I mean, that's a great example. He's worked all of those venues over a long period of time. I find that a lot of the time you get these young guys in and they spend 6 months at a bar and then they want to open their own place. And full credit to them if they can pull that off, but I really have my doubts when they try and do that. And my biggest advice would just to be take it slow. Like I said before, such a huge risk involved when especially when you're backing it yourself financially. So just make sure you're ready. Learn through other people's mistakes. Use other people's venues. To learn what you want to do.
So this is the venue that I think as the four partners in our old company is the venue we don't talk about. And this is the venue that changed our perspective of how we did business. It was the humbling moment of having a business that fails. At the time with the first two bars, it made a lot of money, and we became probably a bit arrogant. And we were just carefree guys just opening bars, and we're like, yeah, this is easy. We're opening bars, we're making loads of money. And then we just thought we could open a restaurant and a bar in a neighbourhood that we thought was an affluent area. Still, Hampstead in London is an amazing area with people with a lot of money. And we thought, yeah, it'll be fine. We'll open a bar, we'll make loads of money. We've got good rent. We've got a lot of money in the bank. We got some big brand investment again for our third place in 3 years. And it didn't work out that way. We were humbled in a big way. We opened this in July, we closed in February. Luckily for us, we set up another company to do this one. But at the time, we were pumping in so much money from the bars that it was in danger of taking the other bars down a bit. So I would say we made a smart decision by cutting it off and letting it go. But from here on in, I think this probably changed all of us as bar owners and operators, that we actually start to think about the venues we're opening. Is it the right area? And actually start to consider it, and became less arrogant. Definitely became less arrogant. We still did a lot of the work ourselves. We saved a lot of money. We spent a little bit of money. I think all in all we spent about 130 grand on this. It was a burger restaurant with whiskey on the ground floor, and then it was another version of Pearl on the upstairs. The bar upstairs did amazingly well, but anyone who's opened a restaurant with chefs will be able to know that they cost a lot of money. And they like to work long hours, so the chefs just brought us down. Our wage bill was insane, and it just didn't make any money. So we cut it off and changed how we did our business.
I think that's a really good lesson to sort of learn, is that you can bounce back from a failed business as well. It's not as much as we'll probably talk about, make sure you do all the work, and there's so much risk involved, and it sounds like super scary. Like as soon as you fail, it's like that's it. It doesn't have to be it. You can bounce back.
I think the biggest lesson that I learned is understanding if your business is failing and knowing and actually being honest with yourself. Is this going to are we going to turn this around? And if it's not, you've got to get rid of it. You've got to cut it off and figure out a way of paying the people off you owe money to, but actually stop the bleeding. It's like be clever about how you run your business, because ultimately we were smart about it, but we had to make some big decisions, and ultimately as 4 partners we all went our separate ways because of this business. We all had different ideas about how we wanted it to close, how we wanted the bars to function, and I actually sold my shares in that company and decided to go out of money. It led to this. So in 2013, the guy that I know was a chef at a hotel called St. John, and they'd opened a hotel called St. John Hotel, and that business actually failed as well. So he decided to stay, and he got an investor from Singapore, and they opened a place called 1 Leicester Street, and they had a bar upstairs. Didn't really know anything to do about it. So he said to me, "Do you want to do a 1-month pop-up?" And I was like, jumped to the chance. I wanted to be creative. I wanted to jump back in. So we literally jumped behind the bar. We didn't do any interiors. This was the interior before. We made 2 drinks look like something. We sent out a press release, and there was a lot of hype around. I made this drink with pig's blood in it, solely because I wanted people to read about it in the press. And I was like, shit, people want to taste this. I've got to make it taste good. And people just off the back of that drink, people came to the pop-up to solely try this drink. And I did it because it's the St. John, and it was a nose-to-tail eating restaurant, and I wanted to do a Bloody Mary with blood in it. It tasted actually quite good, but we got some press out of this. But this is a lesson for me that you can do things in other people's venues with no risk. There was 0 risk in this. The staff were paid by the hotel. The booze was paid for by the hotel. I just went in and made some drinks and set a deal up to get paid off the profits of the bar. It did really well in the 1 month, and they asked me to stay on and operate the bar under Talented Mr. Fox, which is my new company name. And we stayed there until they actually sold the hotel in the July of the following year. Every month we were profitable. We were killing it. It did really good. But off the back of this, these guys at a big hotel in Bethnal Green called the Town Hall Hotel, and at the time there was a chef called Nuno Mendes. He had a restaurant called Via Gente, which was in the top 100 in the world's best restaurants. And from listening to little things, I heard that he was looking to leave and walk away, and there's the most amazing space in the bar area. So me being cheeky, I called the owner of the Singapore and said, I want that space. And he said yes, on the phone there and then. Dan, you're doing really well in Leicester Square, let's do it. So it moves on to the next slide.
So I think, Matt is quite honestly, I would say, in my opinion, probably one of the most, if the most creative guys in terms of drinks that I know globally. And you'll notice, about the pig's blood drink and, the timeout review that he got before, obviously, that works to his advantage. And he's been really great that he can, fall back on his creativity. You don't have to do that, and sometimes, what Matt was saying, having a venue that has less risk by just working for someone that he's putting towards the capital, that's a great way to learn how to run a business. Sometimes, and you don't have to be. Matt and myself have been very lucky in the past with venues. We've had people putting the capital in and have relied upon us to have the creativity or whatever. You might not be lucky enough to get that, and so sometimes it's worth swallowing your pride a little bit. Someone wants to open like an Italian pizzeria or something and have cocktails on the side. They just want a very simple list. Execute that. You can still learn a great deal about the numbers of running a business without, having to, you don't have to put your whole heart and soul into, making the drinks as creative and flashy as possible. Use that as your learning experience to then go on to what you want to do.
Yeah, so off the back of being incredibly cheeky and calling up the Singaporean billionaire in his big house in Singapore, saying, I want your venue. He said, yes. He said, you can do whatever you want. I'll give you 40 grand to do it, but you're not allowed to move the bar. And moving the bar for me was like one of the biggest things I wanted to do. It is an ugly looking bar that took up a lot of room, but actually it worked. So yeah, this is a hotel in Bethnal Green. It's a 93 room hotel, but we didn't want to open a hotel bar. We wanted to open a really fun bar in the East End of London and just do some cocktails that were a little bit tongue-in-cheek, quite creative. But this was an opportunity to open a bar with literally zero risk. The hotel put in the money, and again they were paying for the staff. One of the old bartenders, Hamish, is here as well today. And they gave me the freedom to literally do whatever I wanted. As long as we kind of looked over the hotel and made sure that what they were doing in their beverage side in the rooms was taken care of. So throughout this, I never ever took a salary out from the hotel. It was always paid on the profits. We structured a deal where I got, at times with stocks, I took 40% of whatever was over and above what they'd already taken, and so that was a really good deal for me. But this one was a 20% deal of bottom line profit. So I had to kind of be creative, but make sure we made money as well, because 20% of bottom line profit, anyone that owns bars, can be pretty minimal. So we had to really be creative in how we went about our business. So we decided we were going to buy neutral grain spirit, we were going to buy small producers, buy in bulk, and we've made a lot of things ourselves. We set a little lab up, and we went about trying to make as much of it as ourselves to save on our costs. So our GP was really high. We had to operate with minimal staff, and we did really well. It was a really good venue. The hotel we were next door to a really progressive restaurant as well called the Typing Room. So me and the chef I think the hotel hated us because we were this forward-thinking chef and bartender, and the hotel were these really methodical, traditional hoteliers, and they didn't kind of see what we were up to. They didn't get it. They didn't really send guests our way because they didn't understand it. And for us, that was quite nice because it meant that the hotel guests would come down and say, "We want to come in your bar," and that was full, which was nice for us because it meant they didn't send loads of people our way. But sometimes it could be a hindrance when there's 100 people having a wedding and they're trying to crash the bar when you're full. So there's things to think about when we're opening a bar with no risk attached, but then you have the headache of a wedding coming into your bar and ruining your vibe because they stood around the bar. And there's little things like this, but I think the positives definitely outweigh the negatives of this venue. And up until December last year, it was still there. We decided. I opened Scout last year, and it was taking up a lot of my time. I got the team. I didn't have the time to spend as much time on Peg and Poacher, and the contract had expired in May, and we were just seeing how long we could stay open for. And it got to the time where it was this is done. 3.5 years in a hotel felt like about 20. It can be quite stressful. We're dealing with 20 different departments with a shared fridge and things like this. So it was time to let it go. We went out on a high. The bar was still busy. I have a lot of fond memories of this place, but it's just another example of different ways to open venues. If you're starting out, or if you're like a bartender, you don't have any money, you on your hourly salary, by maybe the chance meeting, being a little bit cheeky, having the balls to go up to someone and ask them, can I do this? Is there an opportunity? And you can reap the benefits of being in the right place at the right time. And then Scout opened. So this was, I've been at Peg and Patriot for 3 years, and I've been itching to have my own four walls. I wanted to have my own space. I met a new partner who I'd done some consultancy with, and he was desperate to do a bar with me, and we was like, let's get talking then. And London, when we opened this, was a difficult place to totally change from Pearl. It was incredibly difficult to find a site. Landlords would not back you if you didn't have any financial background, if you didn't have 5 years worth of accounts. A landlord's not going to talk to you because they're worried you're not going to pay the rent. There's big premiums in London, where they're just wanting 100 grand for you to sign the contract. So we started looking in sort of September of 2016, and my partner at the time was like, "Oh, found this site, you want to talk to us?" Thankfully, he's got like a few pubs and some restaurants, so we had some financial support for his records of his other business. And the landlord offered us the space in the meeting. And we were probably 6 months too. We'd not even got this far. We did not even put the finances in place. We just knew that we wanted to open a bar together. So what we did here, there's companies, I don't know if you have it here, it's called asset finance. Where you pay punchy terms, but they basically pay for everything for you. It's like a loan, essentially. But you have to show your invoices and they give you the money based on your invoice. So they essentially own all of your fixtures and fittings inside your venue. And if you can't pay it, they come and take your fixtures and fittings away. But it was the right thing for us to do at the time. Scout in this location didn't actually work out as good as it can be expected. We were killing it with awards. We were in the top 100 in the world, and from the outside in, I think people would look and go, Scout's making like so much money. But the asset finance payments were punchy, the rent was quite high, and we wasn't taking the same amount of money as what we expected. We were sandwiched in between two like really dirty, nasty nightclubs. So when everyone else was like killing it in Shoreditch on a Friday and Saturday night, we were quiet because nice people like us didn't want to come to a cocktail bar through like people being sick in the street. So it's the God's honest truth. If my doorman came inside to go to the bathroom, there'd be people sitting on the step being sick. It's Shoreditch that street is terrible.
I still have to look at some of the CCTV kind of footage. That's always entertaining.
One of the best things ever was watching my CCTV after it closed. It's so good. So yeah, but from the outside in, like, it's not looking at bars in the top 50 or 100 in the world. It's not always what you see. Sometimes operating in this area can be a challenge. It was only a 40-seat cocktail bar with rent of like 55 grand a year. So we actually sold it in July this year. The deal went through in September. We sold the lease for £175,000. We paid off our loans and we relocated into Hackney Central, which is about a mile away. The rent is now £21,000 a year, so we've cut like 30 grand a year off our rent. We're doing the same numbers as we did in Shoreditch. So actually, we're not making loads of money. I'd be lying if I said I was like rolling deep from Scout. It's actually a little bit smaller. It's 30 seats. But it secures the future of what Scout can be. We can get to push the bar to different levels. It's never going to be a bar that makes loads of money, but it builds profile for the other things that we do in our business. So this is the basement of the new Scout in Hackney Central. We actually set up a company called Gold Tooth, one of my bartenders and me, Sam. We saw a gap in the market for keg cocktails, but not keg cocktails like a mule and things like this or an espresso martini. We wanted to do the world's best cocktails that you can get in an amazing cocktail bar, but in a pub. So we set this up and we were going out. We've got like 10 contracts in London, but the first 2 contracts were so hard to get over the line because people will say, I want to taste these, and we're like, we're in a keg and we can't really supply you with a keg for free. So this was a dead space. I decided to lose a little bit of space of where the lab was going to be, and we've got like a 20-seat little bar in the basement with 4 taps in the walls. It's more of a showcase for people if they want it, or a party venue, but it was about utilising space to one, raise revenue away from the site, and we've gained a lot of traction with Gold Tooth now, but also to have a totally different venue for people to party in it's definitely different to Scout upstairs.
I think this is a really good, like, smart use of the venue space as well. Obviously, Scout upstairs is doing something that is very niche. It's not for everyone, and by having Gold Tooth downstairs, they can, really push people down there that maybe want to party and just are there for a quick drink and not really there for the whole sort of experience. I think that's really intelligent not to like really push that whole concept on everyone and sort of make it a little bit more approachable.
In Hackney, people like to get a bit down and dirty where we are, so they don't necessarily want to sit in this like minimalist Scandi Japanese vibe bar with like background hip hop. They want to, they want to drink a bourbon and coke or a cocktail on tap and just sit and listen to some grimy music and be a bit hot and sweaty. And then this is the reason why I'm in Australia at the minute. We're going to open a Scout in Sydney in February. Another totally different way of opening a bar. I actually came to do a pop-up with the guys at Icebergs in Bondi. The party Beasley was working with, the party was insane. People were going crazy for it. And the owner said to me, like, I want to do Scout in Sydney. So me being cheeky again said, let's do it then. I was always planning to come and spend a lot of time in Melbourne anyway with Luke. But these guys said we've got a space in the top floor of one of our venues. You can take it. We'll pay for the fit out. We'll pay you a salary to operate inside. So for me, it was a no-brainer to go to Sydney. So we've just rented a house there, and I'll be based in Sydney for a little while, and I'll get to hang out with them on 1 hour flight. So yeah, this is as far as we've got at the minute. It's the layout. It's changing a little bit. We're going to put a big tree in the little room. Add a lot of seats, but it's got a lot of natural light. The venue, I don't know if anyone's been to the Dolphin in Surrey Hills when they've been in Sydney, but the venue is quite quirky and very light and bright, and we're going to change it a lot. It's going to be really dark, totally different. So when you walk through the door, it's going to be a totally different venue. It's actually a pub as well, so there's a lot of people getting smashed downstairs, so it's going to be like a key code entry, so you'll get a code for your booking, or you'll get a code card at the front door. So you'll only be able to get up if you have a code, and it'll stop the drunken, crazy Sydney people coming upstairs, because they can get a little bit wild. Actually. And then this is another way of utilising like the profile that only some bars with no money like Scout has done for us. Peg and Patriot helped to establish this as well as consultancy. This is a way of making money by opening bars for other people. You get to spend other people's money, which is nice. You get to be creative all the time, and we've had a lot of joy in opening bars for other people. And this is generally a lot of what my work is spending time with other people in their bars and training their staff. I would say probably opened 50 venues now for other people. Some around Europe, some a little bit further, a lot in London, just outside of London. And you get to be able to put your little print on different places for your own little bits of the way you do your business. You get to train in your way, and it's nice to walk away and see that you've like left a little imprint on people in the way they do their business. And it's nice that people want us to work with.
So I'm actually just going to talk a little bit about one specific venue and sort of the road from opening to now, and then onwards to my next venue. But Operation Dagger, based in Singapore, we opened just under 5 years ago now, and it's in a little basement in Chinatown. And my partner and I fell in love with the space. We actually went over to Singapore to open another venue, which I'll talk about in a second, which was just upstairs from Operation Dagger. It's called Oxwell & Co. It's a 4-story British public house. So when we first opened that, it was the concept was British pub food basically. So for Singapore, that was quite a unique sort of thing and a fresh thing. And we brought over celebrity chef Mark Sargent, who was best known for being Gordon Ramsay's right-hand man for years at Claridge's. And Operation Dagger was basically a space on the side. And to be honest, my partner and I, we went over and we met our business partners, and we were actually more interested in this little underground space than we were the public house. But the deal was, get this set up and then you can sort of have a bit of fun. There was a period of time where we were almost looking like we were going to lose the basement space, and that was a bit heartbreaking at the moment, but we eventually got it and opened. And we opened on a very small budget, because all the budget was thrown at the pub. And it's actually 5 years down the road, it's actually been funny that where all the attention and the finance got put was actually in terms of profits and what's been the more rewarding experience in terms of financially has been this tiny little underground thing. There's a couple of reasons for that I'd like to go into. So this is literally the opening team. Myself, my fiance Aki, Max is a friend from my hometown in Coffs Harbour who came over and helped us out for a bit before getting deported because he didn't have the right visa. So that was, he hasn't been back to Singapore since. And then Yujun, who's a local Singapore girl who we really loved at another venue close by. And yeah, that was the team. Yujun just left us about 6 months ago. So she was there for about 4 years. Which is quite, the team has changed a lot. I'm not there every day now. We've got a 100% Singaporean team, which was quite fresh for Singapore. A lot of people, previous operators, introduced sort of people from London, Australia, and to come over and run these cocktail bars or whatever. There's a lot of different hoops that you've got to jump through in terms of basically there's a quota of how many foreigners you can hire. You have to hire at least 4 local staff members to hire 1 foreigner. And so that to me was just like, well, I don't even want to do that. I'd rather work with local staff and train them from the ground up. And we did that with Dagger, and it's paid off. So a little bit about like the nitty gritty of it. So like I said, 70k Singaporean is quite a small amount of money. Like I said, all the money of the initial investment was $1.6 million investment went into Oxford and Perth. And we were left with a little bit on the side. So we had to kind of be creative with what we did with the space. The ownership was the Blind Group, Proprietary Limited, which still own Oxford. And we separated it to a different company for Operation Dagger. A few little sort of numbers. So gross profit of 80%. Annual sales for 2014, 676,000. It's not a lot, but because our margins were so good that we made the little profit that we did make was we kept all of it. So for a small bar that only had when we opened 4 staff members, it was doing really well, as opposed to the British Public House, which had chefs, had 4 floors to run. It just became so much more expensive to run, and it's been funny in hindsight that the smaller venue that had no expectation to make any money ended up carrying quite a load. And then, as you can see, the numbers grew since then until 2017, and they've continued to grow. A small reason why they've continued to grow on a steady pace was, I believe, down to one strategy, and that was one strategy that we had when we opened was we didn't really tell anyone when we opened. We let it grow at its own pace and grew organically. The benefit of it opening with the other space upstairs, like I said, it didn't have pressure on it to make all of the money back straight away. So it could sort of grow organically, and we sort of rose like this, rather than there was this huge amount of pressure, and yeah, we're busy straight away, but then there's nowhere for you to go. So I truly believe that that's one of the keys why it's been successful, is that we let it grow at its own pace. But by all means, I'm under no disillusion. Not everyone is lucky enough to have that, to be able to do that. So this is just a breakdown, literally, of that 70 grand and where it went, more or less. So we had to be quite creative in terms of the design. We actually ran out of money just before we opened, and we had to sort of make do here and there. That includes like getting IKEA for a bar top, which is still the same bar top. Things like that. But and it's funny, when I am in the space, I see all these things, and I'm like, oh my god, I hate that. But no one else sees it. I always have to remind myself. Dim lighting works wonders. So this is a bit of a breakdown as well on who we had when we first opened, as opposed to when we first opened, and this is basically the current setup. So we had 4 full-time staff, 100% Singaporean team, 2 to 3 part-timers that only work on the weekends. We're also just open we just open Monday night, so Monday through to Saturday, closed Sundays, only open from 6 p.m. to 1 a.m. So it's pretty, we're not open for lunch trade, so we're able to sort of really keep control of a lot of our costs and expenses in terms of staff, which has been one of the contributing factors to the success. It's not this huge operation that Oxwell that was open day and night, and we learnt a lot of hard lessons with that. So this is just a few little snaps of the build. This is actually standing above the bar. There was these glass tiles looking down, and I wanted to create the vibe that everyone was standing up, or I had this idea in my head that everyone would be lining up to get in. So as they were lining up, they could see through the glass tiles and see people working underneath. I thought that'd be really cool. I didn't really stop to think that it's constantly 30 odd degrees. No one wants to line up outside. When we took the sort of, we put the clear glass in so people could look down, and then I had to take them all out again because local authorities accused me of trying to be a peeping Tom. But I didn't even think of that. And so we had to take it out, then get the right approval and put it in. So that cost us money. Not a huge deal, but it cost us a lot. This is the empty space. It was very different. This is like even putting plumbing in and everything. This is the use of IKEA wood. So we just sort of put the shelving in quite sporadically. We didn't have really much budget to work with, so that's why we chose to have the IKEA wood. If anyone asks, we say it's wood from Sweden. And like when I say that, it sounds like quite budget, and you think, oh, that can't look nice, but you can make a space look nice. We had a really creative carpenter that made this work for us. So he actually drilled about this far into the walls with metal rods that then those shelves sort of stacked in. And we literally, I don't know if there's a shot, but we literally, with masking tape, put where we wanted to put the shelves, and we said, yeah, we want them there. There wasn't a lot of planning, but we did want it to look sort of quite sporadic and not thought out. But a lot of people sort of, have a look at it and think there was a lot of planning that went into it. It really wasn't. So this is quite an exciting moment. We had the bar top put in, and first customers.
They didn't pay it.
No. I think that was literally sitting at the bar to figure out, okay, is this a nice bar height? So that was one thing that we did think about quite a lot. Okay, light bulb installation. So we had this idea of doing this crazy light bulb chandelier, but we had no idea how we were going to pull it off. Again, we sort of drew on the experience of a local builder. They had to talk through the idea, and he came up with this system of having these grills, and then we would put all the light bulbs, so all those boxes on the side. Were just over 6,000 light bulbs. Sorry, at the time 3,000, because we ordered 3,000 light bulbs from China. They're discontinued bulbs from China, so you get them super cheap. 3,000 is quite a lot, right? You'd think, that'll do, but it didn't even fill half, so we had to order another 3,000. And this is literally putting them in by hand. So a lot of people think that we, got like a designer to design this first. No, we did it all ourselves. So it was quite a process putting up these light bulbs, but it's quite nice now that a look, and we each 3 or 4 of us did that ourselves. So it's like just over 3 days to hang 6,000 light bulbs. So that's it, pretty much done. It's a lot of blood, sweat and tears that went into that one, but it was something that we can now look on it and be like, give us a pat ourselves on the back and say, we did that. So I think when it comes to a day, like everything has an end. When it comes to a day that I'm probably going to close the doors in this venue, I'll be quite nostalgic and look back. It's been a really fun experience. And so basically what I'm going to talk about now is just a little bit about concept design. I think in terms of a venue, whatever you're doing, whether it be really elaborate or quite a simple concept, just have a very clear vision of what you want to do. And concept design is something that I really enjoy doing. Probably my favorite part about opening a venue is, working out the brand and, what things are going to look, and that's the fun part. So this is one of my favorite photos from an artist called Jeff Wall. He's a photographer, and I always love this image called The Invisible Man. This is another inspiration for lighting. This is inspired by an artist called Dan Flavin, who does a lot of fluorescent pieces. So one thing that I wanted with Dagger, and one thing that I like with all my venues, every single little thing has a story and it has a sense of, has a purpose. One of my pet peeves is, you'll be in an amazing venue and you'll say, why did you do this lighting or whatever? I don't know, it looks cool, Give your venue a bit of life and soul by, having things with purpose in the story, because I can guarantee you people will ask those questions, and it's so much nicer if you can inject a bit of soul into it and you can say, it's influenced by this. Jean-Michel Basquiat is my favourite artist. He had a huge source of inspiration for me when we were researching our logo and how we wanted the space of the brand to speak. So this is actually a lot of his artworks incorporate these hobo symbols, and as you can see, the crown on top of there, which is like a sign of respect, and you can see the direct sort of influence. So again, everything has a bit of a story. Even the name Operation Dagger is specific to a movement or a police blitz in 1956 in Singapore, in Chinatown, where we are, to eradicate the area of secret societies and illegal establishments, opium dens, brothels, that sort of thing. So we found that really cool because everyone started calling us, saying, "Oh, what are you opening down the basement?" Another speakeasy, and I hated that term, speakeasy. And still now people write an article and say, "Oh, it's a speakeasy." How are you a speakeasy if you've got a liquor license? I don't know. So I didn't want to be a speakeasy. And Operation Dagger was sort of against, underground secret societies. I was kind of against, a speakeasy. So that's where that sort of came from. Yeah, this one. And so this approach has extended all the way through to the drinks, not just the physical venue. So even down, this is a great example, I guess, of a drink that from the start of the idea, the raw idea, to the finished product. This took about 2 years to come up with this drink. One of my favourite drinks, but a lot of people don't like it as much as I do. I don't know why. I think it's probably I'm fond of it because it took me so long to make it. So, but yeah, this is the idea. It was basically taking a piece of fruit, like a pear that's fallen from grace, and giving it a new life. At the time, we had an issue with, because we're not a wine bar, but we wanted to have quality wines that we were pouring. I mean, when I'm at home, I drink wine, I don't drink cocktails. But we were opening a bottle of, really nice wine, pouring one glass, and then the rest of the bottle was oxidizing, and we didn't want to serve that. So we were trying to come up with creative ideas, reutilizing oxidized wine. The first one was making our own vinegars. There's only so much vinegar that you can serve. So this idea for taking or making a cocktail that didn't have a spirit, which was quite, even with my own bar staff, I remember at the time they were saying, but it has to have a spirit. Why does it have to have a spirit? And that became our sort of thought process on everything that we did in terms of drinks. Why have these set rules been put in place? So this is taking oxidized wine and giving it new life by introducing new acids like tartaric and citric and malic acid, and then introducing caramel and vanilla and curry leaf into that, and poached pears, sorry. And then that was fat washed and filtered in, and you drunk it out of the ceramic pear, and using the hollowed out vanilla bean as a straw.
Sorry. If he ever comes to do a pop-up in your bar, do not let him serve this. I got a bill for about £200 in vanilla. Vanilla in London is not more expensive than Singapore. Don't let anywhere near it.
That's actually a good point to make. We don't serve this drink anymore because in the last year, vanilla has gone through the roof, so we don't actually serve it. But at the time, one of the reasons why we did want to start using these vanilla bean straws was because they were expensive, and we were just slicing them down the middle and using it to infuse a drink, whereas we're actually getting a second life out of this more than anything. And we also, since day one, we never had plastic straws, which has become quite an in vogue thing at the moment. We literally didn't do that at first because we're just trying to cut down on as many costs as we could. I'd love to say that I was this, eco warrior and whatever, but it was literally just to save costs and time and hassle.
You said what vanilla and stuff.
So this is an example of our menu, and this is actually, I've got to a point with this menu at Dagger where it's been basically a work in progress for 4 years. I'm really struggling how to, with ideas of how to streamline it even more. For our space, this works really well for us because it breaks down a lot of different barriers with the guests in terms of, you'll notice we don't actually list the spirit. And quite often that helps us introduce or give the customer a new experience. It's quite funny now that I go around the world and a lot of people are writing menus in this style, but it really works for us. So we've got the 6 drinks up the top there. These are new every 3 months. Down here, Operation Dagger Classics, these are drinks that have stayed on the menu for a while. Natural wine, these are our house ferments that we make of different vegetables and fruits. And that sort of section of the menu actually came about from trying to be a little bit creative to sort of reduce the cost of making cocktails. Spirits are super expensive in Australia, but also in Singapore. So using a lot of different vermouths, wines, low EBV drinks, and fermenting ourselves allowed us to sort of have a little bit more leeway in terms of costing of the drinks. And then we have our omakase menu, which is a bit of inspired by my partner's Japanese family. Her father's a sushi chef, just out of Whiley here, Shidanui. And it's like for me, it's the best way to experience food. So I wanted to continue that into a drink form. But it's also in terms of costing and getting your spend per head up. It's something to think about. A lot of people do flights. We didn't want to do flights because it didn't sit with our concept. So that's why the omakase menu became our way of really capturing people and saying this is what we want you to experience while you're here. And of course, the plus side of it is they're going to buy more than one drink, so your spend per head goes up. And then wine, beer, sake. We do have a couple of normal wines and beers. We are a very niche concept, and not every bar has the luxury of having menus like this. But we even need to have just a standard lager or something on there because not everyone that's going to come down is going to like what you do. I hate to break it to you, so you have to have those options. And this is just an example of our snack menu, very similar to our food menu, to our drinks menu, and it's designed to encourage people to drink, and it's designed to sort of complement the drinks. We're not a restaurant, we don't have chefs, and it's actually another really cool way for my staff to learn about techniques that they don't have to be drinks related all the time, so they're getting to learn about new things. So this is one thing that I sort of drum into my team all the time. It's great, like I was saying before, to be able to rely on creativity and doing this whiz bang cocktail to get people in and for people to take a photo of it, put it on Instagram, and write reviews. But a lot of people, what they don't see is a huge amount of the 99% of organisation that goes into it for that 1% magic. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the doors, and a lot of people, creativity doesn't necessarily have to go hand in hand with just, throwing caution to the wind, and you can still be very creative and be quite methodical and organised. In actual fact, I think it actually helps a lot. The more organised that I can be helps me to be more creative. So things like task sheets, online filing. This is an example of our task sheet. So this is one of 4 sheets that are completed daily. So there's a lot of different prep tasks. I can't expect my bar team to know every single one of those tasks. I couldn't say, right? So having it all written down there takes the pressure off them, takes the pressure off me having to remember that, takes the pressure off them having to, worry that I'm going to come in and something's not going to be done, or, so this is an example of being organized in order to be creative. And a part of that is our creative sessions that we have with the team. This enables me to sort of teach the guys in a controlled environment how to be, because I want to push them to be as creative as possible. And we opened Operation Dagger to be a creative space and to encourage creativity. But of course, everything comes at a cost. So no one can afford someone just slinging a bottle of rum in the sous vide and just hoping for the best, So there's a lot of planning that goes into the menu first of all, and we're doing small batches to cut down on that cost. And everything is written down, everything goes through the till, even if it's not sold to a guest. So if you do use 100 mils on a test infusion, that goes through the till, and we have a button on the till for testing, and it's accounted for at the end of the month, which is a huge thing for me, especially running it remotely. I can see the P&L and I can see exactly what's going on, and the numbers, 99.9% of the time match up. A lot of people, I find it quite funny sometimes that, I'll speak to other operators or owners and they're like, I don't know, the numbers just don't match up. And I'll say something, well, are you running all these things through the till, and do you have a line in there in your P&L? Oh, no. They just expect the stuff to do the right thing. So it's, again, just being more well prepared for it so that there aren't any nasty surprises, because there's always surprises. Extra revenue streams as well. So trying to think outside of the box on what you're selling and what your sort of niche offering is and your concept is, and how can you branch that out into other revenue streams. So like Matt was talking about, the kegged cocktails is a great example, and our retail bottles at Dagger is another one. Like the first cocktail that you had, that's one of our bottled offerings as well. So this allows us to not only sell when the bar's closed, so it's revenue coming in when the bar's not operating, but also people taking bottles home to increase that spend per head as well. So they might have 2 or 3 drinks at the bar, really like a particular drink, and the bottles are there to sell, so you can add that onto the bill as they walk in out of the door. End of slideshow. So I guess what we wanted to sort of keep a bit of time free for people to ask questions. We didn't want to break down, spreadsheets and numbers, but that is a very important part of it. I think one important thing that I learnt was I don't come from a finance background or a business background. I'm from a small town in Coffs Harbour. I started working in bars when I was 18, and I sort of learnt along the way, and I had to learn how to use a spreadsheet. What was a P&L, all these, things. I think you have to make yourself familiar with that. So even now, opening a new business in Melbourne, I rely really heavily on those spreadsheets, planning, budgeting ahead of time. Think of every single little cost that goes into that venue before you're opening, and that's going to save you so much more, so many headaches going forward. You can never plan too much. Rather than having all the spreadsheets on there, we try to keep it a little bit more informal. But yeah, if you guys have any questions, by all means. We're going to make another drink for you too as well, so we can all have a drink together. Thank you as well. Yeah.
What's your new venture, Whearty?
What is the venture, Whearty?
Yeah.
So we've just secured a space in the CBD, which I'm pretty excited to talk about. And basically, me being away in Singapore, I was away for a long period of time from seasons, first of all, and local produce. I find it quite interesting that Singapore has this huge, maybe it's basically smoke and mirrors in my eyes. There's all these amazing restaurants. Singapore has an amazing food scene, but it literally has zero, and I mean zero, agriculture. So that, to me, agriculture, local produce goes hand in hand with, world-class food and drinks. So that was something that I've been away from a lot of the time. We had to be quite creative with what we're doing. We use a ton of imported stuff, and using yuzu and all these Japanese ingredients, things from Europe and that sort of thing. And I started finding those, it didn't have any soul. I didn't realise that was what was missing at the time. But then I had a small project in South Africa where I ran a pop-up basically for 1 year. And I was introduced again to local produce, going out and foraging. And then I realised again, I remembered what I loved about being back home in Australia. So I actually had to go all the way to South Africa to realise what I wanted to do back home. So that's exactly what Whearty is. Whearty is about literally a bird adapting to its environment, flying from one place and then coming back home, adapting to that environment, using local produce, having very close relationships and knowing, where all their ingredients come from, which I think in the drinks world is missing a lot of the time. In the food world, we're asking those questions when we go to a restaurant, where's this cheese from, where's that coming from? A lot of people just, it's just a martini, right? Why are we using French vermouths, when we're making some really good vermouths here, and gins and all this sort of stuff. So I just really want to bring to the forefront that. And yeah, at the end of the day, it's fun for me. It's a bit of a passion project, and it's kind of going back to why I like bartending again. So yeah, it's super exciting for me.
In terms of your projections, are there any line items that come to mind that you're significantly under budgeted for, or did you even consider?
No. I know one for me is like certain like taxes and coming back to, I was talking to Michael literally just like the other day, and I was like, how much does work cover cost? How much does all these little things, because they're a huge line item at the end of the month. A lot of people just focus on those fixed costs of your rent and your utilities and that sort of thing. But yeah, for me, understanding those taxes and a big one at the moment is wages, right? Paying correctly, making sure you understand. That's a lot of people's excuse that I didn't know the rules, but it's all there. Just doing that research. So stuff like that. Sometimes little things like rubbish removal, even that you don't even think about, and even like cutting down on that, composting and doing all those things that are all sustainable, and all those buzzwords, they do affect your bottom line greatly. And that's why I started introducing those things into my venue. Like I said, I'd love to say that I do love the planet, but that wasn't the reason why I started doing that. It's not the reason why we started not serving straws and that sort of thing. It was to try and be a little bit smarter about those costs.
Yeah, I think when we started out in our bars, we were really reactive to all the lines of our P&L, and we learned quite quickly that being reactive was not going to work. So we actually put systems in place that no money was spent, nothing was ordered without anyone agreeing to anything. So in the end of it, we always knew beforehand what our lines were going to be in, and if something came about randomly, it was like a big shock to us, because we generally try to put the systems in place before anybody respected it. So it's not it's blindsided.
There's certain things like I spend like a stupid amount, probably an unnecessary amount on printing menus, because I am one of those idiots that likes a certain quality of paper and that sort of thing, but it's costly, so budget for that. If you're going to do that, it's fine to have, I don't want to say waste money, but it's fine to spend that money there as long as you can afford it, so budgeting ahead of time will let you know whether you can afford it or not.
We've actually just implemented a new accountancy system for paperless accounting, and we always know exactly every single day what position we're at. So it's like been the biggest thing for us is actually modernising our business, going away from paper and actually being like real time all the time. And we spend a fortune on accountancy. Probably one of our biggest expenses is our accountant, but it means that we actually save money elsewhere. It's one of the biggest things I'd say.
Partnerships, how's that going? You had before to start off with, now you're going to tell me?
Down to one.
One.
Yeah, he's. I'm on my own now. I like having partners. I think being on my own is. I've had 2 periods of being on my own. It can be lonely. It can be difficult to. So then it's about surrounding yourself with your staff, and I've been really fortunate that I've hired really well, and people who work for you or have trusted their opinion, because you always need someone else's opinion. You can't make every decision yourself. And yeah, I miss having partners.
I've probably got the opposite experience. Like I've probably had like more negative experiences having partners, and it's made probably influenced the way I do business and going forward a lot. But you know, it is what it is. You know, some people here, you know, a lot of people have very successful partners, like, you know, Michael, the guys at Bar Liberty and whatever. You know, I look at them as great examples of, you know, everyone is bringing something different to the table, which is really important. A lot of the time you've got two people that are essentially doing the same thing, and it's like, how does that work? And it's a recipe for disaster. So I think that's when it can work. In the past, I've probably, like, if I use Oxwell and Dagger for an example, one of the reasons why I think Dagger has been successful in terms of the concept, and maybe Oxwell has gone through a more difficult period. Don't get me wrong, I think Oxwell now, I'm not involved with it, but it makes a lot more money now because over the time it's now found its way. Whereas I think Dagger, because it was just literally in terms of concept-wise, myself and my partner driving it. So there was not a whole heap of like, oh, let's do this, let's do that, let's do that, which is what we had with the public house. And you know, I couldn't think of anything worse really for a business, because eventually you're always going to fight over something, and then the end result really is something. It is a venue that is confused. It's a venue that's coming from all these different angles, and you don't have a really clear, concise concept and business plan. So that's been my experience, but you know, a lot of people have different ones. I think every business is different.
Is there any investment or money that you put into like marketing and getting the business like divide in front of people and letting them know that you're like?
We actually had this discussion about 3 hours ago about how to utilize PR companies and marketing budgets. But back in the early days, we'd never used PR companies. For Peg and Patriot, we use this like incredibly big agency called Purple PR in London. They've got offices in New York, and they put on this ridiculous party. We spent a fortune, had to pull in all favours from the brands, but Peg and Patriot was busy from day one. Overnight, the buzz just happened and we were busy from day one. Scout, we didn't have a party because the space didn't lend it, so we still had a PR company, but it was a slow progression. It was about getting press through the door. So yeah, there's merit in doing it, but there's also picking the right PR company that's right for your business. With the Peg and Patriot one, we changed to supplement the chefs, and we went with a chefy place at the Christmas of opening, and overnight the PR stopped for the bar. We had no one talking about it anymore because we didn't have the same PR company. So they fit at the bar but didn't fit the restaurant, so we changed it. We worked the opposite way around. It costs a lot of money. It's a big expense using a marketing and PR company. So it's about finding the right one that's right for you, shopping around, figuring it out. My advice would be not to try and scrimp on it, because if you scrimp, there's going to be someone who's not, and you become less important to these companies if you're using the low budget for it. You've got to find your right budget, find the right company for you, so they make you a priority.
I think, yeah, in contrast, like, I've never used PR, probably down to the fact that I'm probably a bit anal about how I want sort of things done and said, and so, you know, even things down to social media and all of that I've run myself. But yeah, I've saved a lot of money in terms of not going through a PR company, but I've created a lot more work for myself as well. So it's just which way you want to go, really. I think a big part of, you know, if you choose to work with a PR company, get the right company and make sure that they really understand your brand and concept, and you really feel comfortable with them telling the world about it. Might make everyone a drink, but yeah, and yeah. So yeah, I think we're going to be around for a bit. So, you know, by all means, come and have a chat to us about anything that we didn't cover, or but yeah, first and foremost, thank you very much. Thanks to the Worksmith guys for having us.